wanted to share some thoughts about the phenomenon of older women who are 24/7 caregivers, either by choice or by necessity. A lot of people don't have the option of hiring help. I am not currently in that position, but I watched my mother go through that. She was my father's sole caregiver for many years, and he ultimately died when he was 90. She could barely leave the house. She barely slept because he had her up all night. And this went on for years. So, what brought this to mind was a current news story that broke a month or two ago about the American actor Gene Hackman. If you don't know, if you're not familiar with the story, I'll link it below and you can read about it. It's kind of left the news cycle already, but in a nutshell, his wife, who was considerably younger than him, about 25 years or so, maybe more, was his sole caregiver. He was 95. His own children were not in direct communication with him because he had dementia and really couldn't function, apparently, without his wife's help. So he didn't have access to a phone, I guess. So everything went through her, which raises some flags, but we'll get into that later. So I'm sure she expected to outlive him. Most women expect to live longer than their spouses if they're male, and especially if that husband or partner is a lot older than them. But sometimes you get the worst case scenario. So she died suddenly, and he wandered around the house for a couple weeks before he died. So I'm not sure why they didn't have at least a visiting aide or a nurse. I mean, it sounds like he was in bad enough shape that he should have been in a live-in facility, or they could have been together in an assisted living facility. I don't know whether she, like my mother, thought that only she could give her husband the right care, that she knew best and no one was going to do it as well as her. I get that. But we don't always expect the worst to happen. I think they had the means to provide backup support for her, or even some kind of fail-safe plan where someone checked in or she checked in with someone every day just to say, hey, we're okay, everybody's good, we're all alive. So they lay dead for several weeks before I think a groundskeeper alerted the authorities that he thought he saw someone laying dead in the house. That should not have happened. For the rest of us who can't afford live-in help and round-the-clock care, or even a once a week caregiver, someone to give that primary caregiver a day off, a mental health day. What are the options? So I don't have answers for what each of you might be experiencing, But a few things come to mind. Firstly, reaching out to the community programs available, see what they have to offer, see what there is to support you and your spouse. Sometimes your insurance can cover some of that. It varies a lot, and some people have no insurance, so that might not be an option. But I think there are provisions, some sort of plan where you can get some kind of assistance. And even if it's someone who drops off things for you, a grocery person, someone you can rely on, who's going to come regularly, drops off meals, drops off groceries, helps out with laundry or the yard, that person is a link to the outside when you need help, but they may not come when it's an emergency. Older people tend to be the most isolated and most lonely of anyone. Even when you live with someone, that's lonely. So even though you might be an introvert and you might feel like you like being isolated, especially if you have health issues and maybe you're immunocompromised or you're worried about catching something, having a connection to a community, a group, someone you can check in with is not just healthy, but safe. I think that if you're a woman who is providing 24/7, 365 care for someone, you can't do this alone. If you don't have children nearby or other family who can even just come visit with you, never mind helping out with chores or the elderly ailing person that you're caring for, that can be a welcome respite. My mother's mental health suffered during those years she was caring for my father. She would get on the phone with me and just bawl. She would break down. What if you don't even have someone to cry to? In an ideal world, there would be a community where you could tap into others who are going through what you are. Who else can understand what this is like other than someone going through it themselves? I'm hoping this is a place where we can build a community like that, or we can find others in our area where we can connect online or potentially even in person to support each other, to give and to get help and support. I can't imagine what Gene Hackman went through for those couple of weeks. He may not even have been aware enough to know what kind of trouble he was in. He certainly didn't have it together enough to call anyone. That's a sign. If you're in that position, that is a wake-up call. You can't be a sole caregiver to someone like that because you don't know what's going to happen to you. she didn't even have time to get medical attention for herself. It can be that quick. So, not to be alarmist, but if you care that much about the person you're taking care of, then you have to let go enough to get help, to get support, to allow other people to come in and be there, to assess, to evaluate, to just help out. I can share another personal anecdote. I knew someone close to me who had an elderly father, uh, and this and the father was like Gene Hackman. He had dementia, maybe Alzheimer's, and my friend did just kind of locked him in while he went to work. And eventually the father wandered out and got lost right on his street and knocked on someone's door. And this woman got scared and she called the authorities and they took him off to a hospital and he never went home. They put him in, I guess, the right facility for him. But that amounted, and I thought a number of times, should I call this in? Because I was suspecting not deliberate abuse, but neglect. So there's a fine line between insisting on taking care of everything and neglect. Because you can't do it all. You can't. And if you're closer in age to that person, or you have health issues yourself, or you're not strong, how are you getting them in and out of the bath? How are you getting them in and out of bed, out of chairs? What if that person falls? Sometimes there is no choice, and I understand that. But that means we, the caregivers, have to have someone else who we can call. And also having a plan, a daily plan where you check in with someone to assure that things are going okay. Maybe in the morning, maybe at night. And if that person doesn't hear from you, then they send over someone to do a wellness check. I hope that she did it out of devotion and her belief that only she could give her husband the right care, and that it wasn't something like control or gatekeeping or anything like that. But I mean, I have no evidence that it wasn't just out of a deep sense of care. But that can backfire. So I just wanted to put that out there and share my thoughts. And I would love to hear what you think about this, and if you have any experience with this, and maybe you have a good way of handling a situation like this. All right. Thank you. Bye.